Well, President Joe Biden won by the biggest margin in the New Hampshire primary last night, with 66% of the vote to his challenger's 20%. Joe Biden's 46-point winning margin was achieved without the president campaigning in New Hampshire for even one day. Joe Biden's 46-point winning margin, 4 times as big as Donald Trump's winning margin, was achieved without bothering New Hampshire voters with a single invasive television commercial in their living rooms. And for Joe Biden to win 66% of the vote in the New Hampshire primary required 66% of the voters in the Democratic presidential primary to write in the name Joe Biden. That's right, Joe Biden won 66% of the vote without even having his name on the ballot. Meanwhile, on the Republican side, Donald Trump had the lowest winning margin of any candidate in the history of the New Hampshire primary who has served as president of the United States and had his name on the New Hampshire primary ballot. Once again, and you should be accustomed to this by now, the polls were wrong. Donald Trump went into Election Day with a 20-point lead in the polls and ended up with half of that, a 10-point lead when all the votes were counted against his very strong challenger, Nikki Haley, who regarded her 43% of the vote as worthy of a victory speech.
With Donald Trump, Republicans have lost almost every competitive election. We lost the Senate. We lost the House. We lost the White House. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. And we lost in 2022. The worst kept secret in politics is how badly the Democrats want to run against Donald Trump.
Trump's a loser! He's a loser!
They know Trump is the only Republican in the country who Joe Biden can defeat. You can't fix the mess.
That obviously drove her opponent even crazier than he normally is. And so Donald Trump, when he showed up on the stage looking sweaty and unwell, seemed so thrown off of his game by Nikki Haley's attack speech to the point that he could not even complete the staff-written victory speech that was in his teleprompter. He just gave up. And he turned around and he handed over the microphone to the losers he brought on stage with him, who already dropped out of the Republican presidential primary campaign and endorsed Donald Trump. Conservative writer Matt Lewis, in his column in the Daily Beast, said, "The party of Lincoln has metastasized into a decadent and perverse cult of personality that calls evil good and good evil." Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and former United Nations ambassador during the Trump administration, began her campaign day today in South Carolina, where the next presidential primary will be held next month. She came out swinging at Donald Trump once again.
So we got out there and we did our thing and we said what we had to say. And then Donald Trump got out there and just threw a temper tantrum. He pitched a fit. He was insulting. He was doing what he does. But I know that's what he does when he's insecure. I know that's what he does when he is threatened. And he should feel threatened, without a doubt. Listen, we've only had 2 states that have voted. We got 48 more that deserve to vote. A presidential candidate has to get 1,215 delegates. Donald Trump has 32, and I have 17. Out of everything that he said in his rant, he didn't talk about the American people once. He talked about revenge.
Today, President Biden focused his campaigning on Donald Trump, the candidate who wants to repeal Obamacare. Obamacare enrollment at a record high level today of more than 21 million people whose health insurance Donald Trump is vowing to take away. To a meeting of the United Auto Workers, President Biden said this.
Closing factories, attacking unions, leaving too many Americans behind. In fact, when Donald Trump was in office, 6 auto factories closed around the country. Tens of thousands of auto jobs were lost nationwide during Trump's presidency. During my presidency, we've opened 20 auto factories and more to come. We've created more than 250,000 auto jobs all across America.
And here is what the president of the United Auto Workers, Shawn Fain, said today in delivering the important United Auto Workers endorsement to President Biden.
In 2019, our members were out there holding the line at GM on a national strike for 40 days. Trump was the sitting president. He said nothing. He did nothing, not a damn thing, because he doesn't care about the American worker. Now, here's what Trump did to help the American auto worker in our 2023 historic stand-up strike now that he's running for president. He went to a non-union plant, invited by the boss, and trashed our union. That's right. And here is what Joe Biden did during our stand-up strike. He heard the call, and he stood up, and he showed up. He joined us in solidarity on the picket line for the first time in our nation's history. A sitting president has ever done that. He said on live national TV that the big three, and I quote, should go further to ensure that record corporate profits mean record contracts for the UAW and the workers. So that's the choice we face. It's not about who you like. It's not about your party. It's not this bullshit about age. It's not about anything but our best shot at taking back power for the working class. UAW, UAW, UAW. Donald Trump is a scab. If Donald Trump ever worked in an auto plant, he wouldn't be a UAW member. He'd be a company man trying to squeeze the American worker.